but I think we're okay. And recording of this meeting is now in progress. So I'll call the meeting to order and would like to acknowledge that we are meeting this evening on the territory of the Snawas and Qualicum First Nations. And we thank them for allowing us to live, work, and play and learn on this beautiful part of the Coast Salish lands. First, trustees, I'll call upon adoption of the agenda, but we have 3 additional items. We will be adding an item under 17B, which I will report out on the ministers meeting we had yesterday. And then we have new business items 18A and B, which will be notice of motions from bringing out of our in-camera meeting. So could I ask for a mover and a seconder, please, to approve the agenda as amended? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg, seconded. I'm going to thank you, Trustee Young. All those in favor? Carried. And approval of our consent agenda, a couple of items in there that I draw folks' attention to, which is the literacy screening and the new requirements for health training in grade 10 for physical education for naloxone and AEDs. So I would ask to have approval of the consent agenda as presented this evening. A mover and a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Young. Seconded. Oh boy, I've got to pin some people here. Seconder.
Trustee Kellogg.
Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. I've got to pin people. Now I have to get to work on that. Then all those in favor? Carried. First off this evening, and actually I'm sure she's here, would welcome Ms. Leanne Sauchuk, our auditors, to present the financial statements, but I'll ask Mr. Amos possibly to lead things off.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sheriff Lynn. Great. Yes. So obviously we're now presenting to the board the financial statements, but again, we always start the discussion with the auditors presenting the statements to the board. We had an opportunity to hear from Leanne in camera. The board was able to ask questions at that point, but really it's about Ms. Sauchuk basically giving a presentation on what the audit found and conclusions. Thank you, and over to you.
Welcome, Leanne. And then this for the public's awareness, we will approve the statements later in our agenda. This is a report by our auditors on the contents, high-level contents of the report, and then we will approve it later. So over to you, Ms. Sauchuk.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Leanne Sauchuk. I'm with the district's audit firm, MPS Chartered Professional Accountants, and I'm here to report on the audit we've completed for the most recent fiscal year end, which ended June 30th, 2025. As noted, I met with the trustees earlier today to review this in a bit more detail, so I'm going to keep it very brief. There's a complete copy of the financial statements and our audit report in the agenda package for anyone who's interested in looking to it in a little bit more depth. Our audit report is on page 2 and 3 of the financial statements and states that in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the school district at June 30th, 2025, and the results of its operations for the year then ended in accordance with the Budget Transparency and Accountability Act of BC. Essentially what this means is that we did not find any material errors or misrepresentations in the financial statements prepared, and as a result, we've issued a clean audit opinion. A couple of very high-level notes on the financial results for the year. The school district had an operating deficit for the year of $505,000 and an overall deficit for the year of $586,000. The accumulated operating surplus at the end of the year totaled $700,000 and has been appropriated for future use as detailed in note 13 to the financial statements. Operating revenues for the year were 60.2 million and operating expenses were 60.4 million. There's a breakdown of these in Schedule 2 of the financial statements, which can give you a little bit more detail in there. During the year, the district spent 60 million on salaries and benefits, 10.4 million on services and supplies, and 3 million on capital projects. As noted, there are various notes and schedules attached to the statements, which you can look through to get some more details. There's also a financial statement and discussion analysis document that provides a good overview for anyone who's not familiar with reading financial statements. Overall, I'd like to acknowledge the cooperation of the trustees, management, district staff throughout our audit. Thank them all for their time and their cooperation during the audit. It's never fun having the auditors come in, but they're great and they made our job a lot easier. If any of the trustees have any questions after our meeting this afternoon, I'm happy to take them now. Otherwise, that completes my presentation.
Trustees, any additional comments or questions of Leanne at this time? And we will discuss this later in the agenda. Seeing none, thank you very much, Leanne, for taking time this evening to join us. And yes, to your team, thank you for making it a fun experience. And certainly to our team, Ryan and Ron in the office and things like that. It is work we have to do and we're conscientious of, but we thank you for your patience with all of this as the school year rolls out just about the same time. So thank you and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
You can stay if you want, but
okay.
To put a slight plug in then for staying, you could hear what Trustee Young has titled her presentation for this evening as What I Did on My Summer Vacation. And I would refer to the public in the package to pages 26, or no, sorry, what pages? Oh, you had a report. Oh, it's not listed here. Anyway, you gave a lovely report within the consent agenda, Trustee Young, and I think your presentation tonight will share with the broader public the type of experiences you had. This is not a conference that trustees attend often. It was of interest to Trustee Young, and she sought the support of us, which we were wholeheartedly willing to give. And then now she's coming full circle, I think, by sharing her experiences with us tonight. And you have 10 minutes, and I'm watching the clock.
I know, you can watch the clock. What I need to do is figure out how to share. So I'm just going to hit this little icon that says share. And it says, okay. And I think it's got it right here. Let's see.
Oh, well done. Whoa, there it is.
Okay, so let's see now if I can find it. Do you have it on full screen?
Yes, we do. It's perfect. And,
wow.
And this is your technology learning as well.
Yes, I know. I was at the Technology Learning Center today, and I just a little shout out to those guys. So, as Board Chair Flynn said, the school district did support me going on my summer vacation this year. And then sadly, the conference was turned into a webinar. So I paid back all of that monetary support and went to the conference, and the results are there. The biggest thing that I wanted to do, the first part of our trip to Manitoba, my partner and I went. She is a Manitoban, and I got to hear all about that. But we started in Winnipeg, and the very top of my list was to go to the Human Rights Museum. I'm going to see if this actually works. If I do that. No, okay, I think I know how to do this. There it is. On your screen, you should see Nelson Mandela's quote, for to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, etc. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that was in the restaurant, and I went to the restaurant at the end of my 8-hour visit because I was there for 2 days and I could have been there for 4 days. And this quote really kind of talks about how the Human Rights Museum looks at social justice, and that is that it requires us to walk in someone else's shoes and to take action wherever and whenever there are violations. Freedom does not mean that we have license to suppress others. It is a responsible kind of freedom, but it requires action and activity. So I thought that was a really good quote. Now we're going to see if some of these links actually work, which should be real fun. The Human Rights Museum is located on Israel Asper Way. Izzy Asper, you can probably get into the foundation, his foundation that talks more about his life, but he was a fairly interesting man from Minnedosa, Manitoba. The museum itself, I'm going to try and click on this and see if it works. Look at the museum itself is really cool, and the website kind of talks about it all, but I wanted to give you a chance to kind of look at just the scale of this building. So I'm going to try and, if you've been here, you know
we don't
about
see
it.
We don't
Trustee
see
Young.
we
You don't see
the building link.
the link. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
you have to share your screen again because it's opened up in a different window.
Okay, so should I say new window? Rudy, new window? I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just do a
let's see.
reshare and select that screen that you want everybody to see.
Okay, except I can't get to the share part. Okay, I will go in a different way here. How about that? Can you see that?
No.
Okay. Guess it's not going to work.
Not gonna work.
That's okay.
They're there for people to pick off. Yep.
Sorry?
They're in your report for folks to pick up through the agenda.
Yeah, you can pick it
well.
up through the agenda. So
Yeah.
basically, the tour is, and I now need to get out of this. Okay, there we are. So the tour is of all of the 8 levels. To give you an idea of the scale of this place, it's probably each level is about 3 floors, and the building itself is absolutely fabulous. So on level 1, they had the temporary gallery, which this temporary exhibit was about gay and lesbian rights. And I'll just go to this slide and you can see that. It happened to be an area of human rights that I was personally very familiar with, and that is the attack of people in the armed forces, in the federal government, and in the military who identified as gay or lesbian in the 1980s. And it didn't go into a lot of detail, but it was pretty an interesting introduction for people. The Indigenous Perspectives Gallery on level 2 is really one of the most popular galleries, and it looks at Indigenous people from all across Canada. So it highlights, it has a kind of a newsreel that runs and shows all the different types of perspectives that we see across Canada. On level 4, level 3 is mostly offices and there's a restaurant there and so on and so forth. Level 4 has a section on examining the Holocaust, and that was someplace where I spent a fair amount of time, basically because my background is in history of that era, the time from the First World War to the Second World War and the development of Nazism in Europe. So that I found really, really interesting, very, very difficult to deal with. In addition to that, they look at Holocausts in other areas, Holocausts in other countries, and I found that really illuminating. And then the witness blanket, which there is no video that I have ever seen of the witness blanket that really tells you how it looks. It's monumental. The work is monumental. So when you go to videos, and there are many of them on the witness blanket, you can see kind of how it looks, but it covers a whole room. And of course, it honors residential school survivors. The Rights Today is all about human rights in today's world and where we appear to be going. I won't say much more about that. Level 6 had a display that was that was changing, so it wasn't open. And then level 7 is all about what are you willing to do personally as a person who understands social justice to enact social justice. And I found that pretty inspiring. And then the top level is the Tower of Hope. Izzy Asper was a man of hope. He was a man of vision. And this tower is basically a glassed-in area that shows all of Winnipeg and the surrounding plains. So there's also, when you go to the website, and I really would suggest that you go to the website because it's fabulous in terms of education. And I've been following it for probably about 10 years now. But there's a section on the building and how the building was built that I found really interesting as well. And so that is my presentation. And now I will try to get out of this. And if people have questions, I'm happy to take them.
Trustee Austin.
Thanks so much for that, Elaine. I am so glad that you were able to go and do that despite all the wildfire smoke this summer. So kudos to both of you for being intrepid travelers and traveling through all that smoke. Yes, I was just going over the website as you were talking, and I would encourage everyone to go there as well. There's a whole section on education, and there's resources for educators to use on any number of human rights perspectives, Indigenous rights, rights in times of conflict. Anyway, there's all sorts of educational material there in both English and French. So it's really well worth visiting. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's a really useful website for educators, I think.
Thank you, Trustee Young. I know it was disappointing that it went virtual, but I think you're captured a lot for folks to be able to read up on. That's in the agenda package of the various things that Canadian School Boards Association cover off for across Canada's, you didn't get to rub shoulders with these people necessarily, unfortunately, which is part of it. But so appreciate you being able to share with us your highs of what you took away from the conference and your visit to Winnipeg.
And it's in Whistler next year.
And it's in Whistler next year, yes. Public question period. We have had a via email submitted from the United Parents Alliance, a question regarding through our budget. Page 52, schedule 2B, other professionals, a question about the costing of other professionals. Our Secretary Treasurer will elaborate on that when he reviews the actual financial statements in 11A3, which is the motion to approve our financial statements. So I'll now move to Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association and Mr. Matt Wood.
Excuse me. Yes. Good evening, Hiawatha, and bonsoir. Just a couple things today, and thank you, Trustee Young, for sharing your experience. It's always we have a goal. That you set these goals, and we are trying to see every museum on Vancouver Island, like all the little ones. And you think, and so you go, and then suddenly it's not open that day, because it's largely volunteer. But it's always fascinating, and especially in a time when history seemed to be getting trampled a bit. it's important to ensure that we visit those sites. But thanks for sharing that. I just a couple things I want to bring forward today. I'll start off with the one that I'm still fascinated about, and that is just looking at the budget. I'm not going to go into my statements as I've made in prior. Everyone knows my feelings on the budget and how provincially it gets funded. But it is looking back on, I think it's page 66, 67, the funded FTE enrollment by fiscal year. And it is interesting to see that in 2020 and 2021, we had 4,409 students. And in 24-25, we had 4,383 students. So in those years, we've, had about a 25 student, give or take, back and forth. And we went from probably what I believe we were at a funded position to, potentially funding protection. And so it just fascinates me how an enrollment fluctuation of 25 students can put immense pressure on a district to the tune where, we lose EAs in the classroom. We went from about, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I believe it's about 15 full-time teacher positions that have been lost over the last 5 years. So those are positions that are in front of students and positions that are supportive of teachers and supportive of change. And those have been lost to the system. And how I look at it is that's simply because of a fluctuation of 25 students. But obviously there's inflation and all those other things that go about that are unfunded when these budgets get passed. So I just want to make that as a simple statement that I noticed going through this paperwork. And then second, I just want to remind everybody that it is World Teachers Day. It's on October 5th. It's a Sunday. So this is notice that MATA will be visiting all the schools on the Friday, October 3rd. We'll be leaving some appreciation gifts for teachers in staff rooms. And so asking, folks that are in those schools to enjoy the appreciation gifts that we'll be leaving on that Friday of October 3rd in celebration of World Teachers Day and the importance of teachers, especially in a democratic society. Thank you, everyone. Merci beaucoup. Sept.
Thanks, Matt. Canadian Union of Public Employees, Local 3570, Mr. Ewan. Rycroft, where are you hiding?
I'm here. I'm not hiding. Thank you.
Okay.
Good to go. I'd like to thank Elaine for her presentation. That was really well done and a lot of information to review afterwards. Good evening, board members and board colleagues and value community partners. As we gather here tonight, I want to begin by acknowledging National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September the 30th, a time set aside to reflect on the ongoing impacts of residential schools and to honor survivors, their families, and the communities affected. This day reminds us of our shared responsibilities to foster healing, champion truth, and pursue reconciliation with genuine intent. Turning the matter at hand, our district, like many others across the province, is navigating the difficult waters of financial budget cuts. These reductions are more than numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent tangible changes that touch every corner of our schools, from classrooms to offices and beyond. We are well into the school year start, and already the effects of the budget shortfalls are evident. Our staff at every level are feeling the stress and strain of doing more with less. Clerical and library clerks, employees are being asked to maintain the high standards of service with reduced hours. Educational assistants are stretched thin, supporting a growing number of students with diverse and complex learning needs, often without the necessary resources or additional colleagues to share the load. Our bus drivers are working tirelessly to adapt to the new routes, tighter schedules, ensuring students arrive safely and on time, despite fewer resources. In maintenance and trades, crucial tasks are completed with fewer hands, while our custodian teams work diligently to uphold cleanliness and safety standards amidst the outdated equipment and limited staffing. The cumulative effect of these challenges do not fall solely on our members. Ultimately, it is our students, our reasons for being here, who feel the impact. Reduced support means less individualization, attention. Delayed repairs affect learning environments, and every department from the lunchroom to the library is being asked to stretch an already thin resource even further. Yet in the face of adversity, our school community continues to demonstrate remarkable resilience and a steadfast commitment to student success. I'm inspired by the creativity, collaboration, and compassion that our staff bring to their work every single day. Their dedication ensures our schools remain places of growth, safety, and opportunity. But goodwill and determination cannot and should not compensate for a lack of adequate funding. It is vital that we as a board advocate strongly for resources our students and staff deserve. We must continue to raise our voices together with parents, caregivers, and partners to urge decision makers at every level to recognize the urgent need for sustainable, equitable investment in public education. Let us approach these challenges not with resignation, but with resolve. Let us honor our obligations to truth and reconciliation by ensuring all students have access to the support and opportunities they need to thrive. And let us move forward as one community, united in our pursuit of high quality education for all. It brings me great joy that the community track is now completed and ready for everyone to enjoy. The achievement stands as a testament to the power of collaboration, with so many community supporters joining forces to make this project a reality. What an incredible opportunity for this community, providing a welcome space where people of all ages can come together, active, and celebrate wellness. Together, we are building not just stronger bodies, but stronger, more connected community. Many unions are bargaining this year amid provincial and federal deficits. We plan on beginning negotiations after the K-12 provincial bargaining concludes and anticipate constructive discussions with the employer soon. Allow me to elaborate further for both the board members and for parents who are the foundation of our school community. As you know, this year presents unique and significant challenges for education sector, not just in our district, but across the province and nation. Many unions, including ours, is entering a bargaining period during a time when both provincial and federal governments are facing considerable budget deficits. This reality shapes the context in which we must advocate for our members, and most importantly, the students, whose growth and well-being are at the heart of our work. Our plan is to begin negotiations after the K-12 bargaining concludes, and we do so with a spirit of collaboration and hope. We look forward to engaging in meaningful, productive conversations with the employer, and we are committed to ensuring that the voices of our members who serve every corner of our schools are heard and respected. To the parents joining us tonight, I want to acknowledge the extra burdens you are carrying as you support your children through these turbulent times. We know that uncertainty in the classroom often translates to uncertainty in the kitchen table. You may see your children's favorite program being reduced, or notice staff stretching to cover more ground. Please know that your concerns and your advocacy matter. Together, we can amplify the message that education is not an area for compromise, but an investment in our collective future. Our members' commitment remains unwavering. Every day, they show up for students, sometimes before the sunrise, sometimes long after the school bell has rung. Because they know the difference of a caring word, a clean classroom, or a safe ride home can make the difference. Their dedication is the backbone of our district, and it deserves to be matched by adequate resources and fair compensation. This is why our bargaining efforts are so critical. We seek agreements that not only recognize the hard work and expertise of our members, but also safeguard the quality of education for every child who walks through our doors. Our ask at the table will be grounded in the realities you see every day: the need for more hands in the classroom, for updated equipment, for safe and welcoming learning spaces. For parents, your role as partners in advocacy cannot be overstated. When you speak out in letters, at meetings, and conversations with decision makers, you remind our leaders that schools are the beating heart of every community. I encourage you to stay informed, stay involved, and continue to stand with us as we work towards solutions that benefit all. In closing, while the road ahead may be uncertain, our resolve is not. By joining forces, board, staff, parents, and community, we send a powerful message that our children's education is worth every effort and every resource. Together, we can overcome these challenges and build a future where every student has the support and opportunity they need to thrive. Thank you for your time, your trust, and your steadfast belief in public education. Thank you.
Thanks, Ewan, very much. Now, District Parent Advisory Council, speaking on behalf tonight is, I know there was a report filed, but will there be anyone speaking to the report this evening? Okay. The minutes will have the report file. Oh, sorry, am I missing somebody?
I think Jason might be
Jason
speaking.
Howard is there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jason? Okay, oh, Jason, just admitting him right now. Jason, are you with us?
I'm trying to be. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, okay,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
I-
Go
I
ahead,
was having
go
trouble
ahead.
with my mic, so I had to
Okay.
get back in. Sorry about that.
No problem, welcome.
All right. Let me get back to video on. There we go. I was here. Anyways, on behalf of the DPAC Interim Committee, we thank Trustee Kellogg, Superintendent Dr. Jory, and MATA President Matt Woods for joining our first DPAC meeting of the school year. We value receiving information directly from district leadership and the opportunity to raise parent concerns, especially around food programs, field trips, accessibility, and inclusion, while also working together on solutions. We again stress the need for a dedicated working group on food programs. Families across our district are experiencing growing food insecurity, and parents with lived experience are ready to bring their voices and ideas forward. What is urgently needed is stronger coordination across the district and better use of existing food programs to respond to emergency and ongoing needs. Provincial and federal governments have provided funding, and parents believe it is essential that these resources are used fully and effectively. The need is both pressing and increasing, and parents are committed to being part of the solution. We are also continuing to hear from families about the importance of clear, consistent, and timely communication. Parents need reliable updates and clear channels to give feedback and raise concerns. We are committed to seeing meaningful action from the Communications Working Group and appreciate the chance to participate in this important effort. We are optimistic that our new DPAC board, to be elected at the October meeting, will continue to partner with key stakeholders and raise these important issues on behalf of families. And we thank you for the opportunity to share the perspectives of parents across our district. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jason. We appreciate it. And I will be joining you at your October meeting and look forward to the slate of elected officials to be confirmed and working with you all as we go through this school year. And we thank you for your points you've raised this evening.
Thank you.
Action items. Our first off on our agenda is the 2020-24-25 financial statements. But first off, we need to address motion regarding our Indigenous education targeted funding, which we need to, as a board, where the funding is not used in the previous year, it is acknowledged and carried forward. So I would move that the Board of Education, School District 69 Qualicum, request approval from the Ministry of Education and Child Care for the underspent targeted Indigenous education funding for 24-25 school year in the amount of $63,560, and that the Board of Education confirm the surplus will be allocated and spent in the Indigenous education program in 2025 and 2026. And this is an annual motion to the board. Could I have a seconder, please? Seconded Trustee Kellogg, and I see Mr. Amos has his hand up for additional comments. Mr. Amos.
Sorry, yeah, and I didn't know if you wanted me to lead in on these ones, but really it's about I'll give you context to why these motions are before you and why they sort of dovetail with the audited statements. Indigenous education have targeted funding as the motion implies, and that funding needs to be spent in the year we receive it. And in the event that the funds aren't spent in their entirety, then the board is asked to basically appropriate those funds out of surplus in order that they be embedded into the 25 or the following year's planning. And so that's what you're seeing is Ms. Suchak, she made reference to, just checking my notes here, note to self. Where are we at? On page 52, or on page, this is what happens when you kind of insert yourself into a conversation. On page 45, she made reference to the appropriated surplus in the notes. And this is what these four motions are meant to address, these three motions. So the Indigenous said, if on page 45, it talks about the appropriated surplus. And so what's identified is school budgets, Indigenous education, and appropriated for future years. And so that's the value that the third motion speaks to. The first two motions speak to the identification of the Indigenous education funding. And so I would encourage folks to read, as they're reading the financial statements, to take a look at some of the notes as they apply to the financial statements, because there is relevance to what's being presented, not only in the financial statements, but also into the notes as they lead into the motions themselves. That's really the narrative I just wanted to express on those.
Sorry, Mr. Amos, this is sort
No
of
worries.
a standing order every year to take care of the Indigenous piece first. And yes, it is deeply embedded into the paperwork here of your financial statements and the audited financial report. So trustees, do you have any questions? Trustee Young?
Yeah, I got a couple. I'm just wondering what note number was that? Because I'm using the one from our in-camera, so the page numbers don't work.
It's page 40, page 45 of the agenda package. It's note
Right.
13 in the statements.
Note 13, thank you. Just so that people are really clear which ones. Yes, I see that accumulated surplus. Thank you. And I guess not so much for my edification, but for a lot of people, what does this targeted funding cover in our district? Like what, and who's in control? Can we have a little bit more information for folks who may not be as familiar with Indigenous monies? So I'm going to ask Board Chair Flynn to respond to that one.
Well, the Indigenous education funding is definitely targeted to our Indigenous education programs. That's our liaison workers, the district principal, the extra tutorials and extra resources required for support of any and all Indigenous students in our district. And if the department does not expend their targeted monies, then we need to acknowledge that they're carried forward and separated to the next year Indigenous education budget. Dr. Jory, would you enhance on that, or have I covered basic?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, the new legislation and the responsibilities to work in conjunction with our local Indigenous education councils, and to make sure that we are consulting with them fulsomely, and that we are spending the money in a way that meets the needs and the interests of our local Indigenous people.
And this is over time will appear as a very, we hope, in-depth discussion with the Indigenous educational councils, and they're reporting to us the activities that they are appropriating their funds for and using their monies for, so that we are clear in our minds as well where these targeted monies are being spent. And yes, there's very much a direct line for that to the board as far as a reporting feature by the Indigenous Education Councils. So we have the motion on the table, moved by myself, seconded by Trustee Kellogg. Are there any further questions, trustees? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? And Trustee Kurland, I'm going to take I haven't seen a hand wave or anything else. I'll take it as an affirmative. The second motion this evening, and embedded in the audit report is the schedule for internally restricted surplus. So I move that the Board of Education, School District 69 Qualicum accept the schedule of internally restricted surplus as presented. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Any further additional comments, Mr. Amos, to the accumulate stills note 13? No additional comments by.
No additional comments. Yes, note 13.
Okay. Okay. Note 13. Any questions, trustees? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And then our third motion this evening is regarding the 2024-2025 audit of financial statements. That the Board of Education, School District 69 Qualicum approve the 2024-2025 audited financial statements as presented. And could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Young. I might ask Mr. Amos if you could expand a bit on the question from the public, United Parents Alliance of page 52, Schedule 2B, other professionals and how those that financial piece and who it covers. Basically, it's who it covers.
Yep. Yes. So again, drawing your attention to the notes under on page 39. And again, this is why I'm pointing it out, because oftentimes the information is presented to you. But again, this is the nature of the financial statements, and the amount of paper that obviously goes with it is sometimes it gets lost in the translation. But just a point in fact, note 2, which is a summary of significant accounting policies, goes through a list of various areas that the financial statements are prepared under. And so they speak to some of the local policies that the school district has signed off on. It speaks to some of the accounting rules or generally accepted accounting and auditing practices. It speaks to how we amortize. It speaks to prepaid. What's the definition of prepaid? What's the definition of revenue recognition? And again, just drawing your attention to item L under expenditures, it speaks to the categories of salaries, and that's where the reference is made to what positions make up principals and vice principals and directors of instructions as reported in the statements. What positions are called other professionals, and again, just referencing superintendents, associate superintendents, secretary treasurers, trustees, and other employees excluded from union contract are categorized as other professionals. So that's what makes up the other professional areas. Basically, we call them exempt staff. We sometimes call them excluded. Effectively, they are not covered under a collective agreement. Therefore, some come with contracts, some come with I guess they all come from contracts, but referencing they're not covered under collective agreement. So that ties to the rest of the question under page 52, Schedule 2B. And again, I'm pointing this out because the question actually spoke to the differential between other professionals reported in the 2024 year and the 2025 year. And again, I'm just really just sort of honing in that the information is generally in here, but again, it sometimes needs a little bit of teasing out for what the information is actually presenting. So just noting on that question of the other professional line on that page, in 2024, it was reported 1.8 million. In 2025, it was reported 2.1. And the differential in 2024, we had quite a bit of a capital planning going on, so we moved some of the operations managers' wages, or some of their wages, into the capital program as the False Bay, for example, capital project was being developed. So effectively, 2024 is reported less than a standard year. 2025 is reflecting a normal year, but it's up by one employee. And so last year, Associate Superintendent Wilson reported quite extensively on the new program that was introduced into our school, into our district, and it's the ICY clinical counselor position, as well as one that's within the CUPE collective agreement. So the clinical counselor falls within this other professional. It comes with additional funding, but the costs are embedded in that 2.14 million dollar entry. So the sum of the two, with 2024 reported less than a normal year. In 2025, it was an increased year because of the additional staff member. But there's also obviously embedded in that is the negotiated settlements that come with provincial bargaining and provincial contracts that trickles down to the exempt staff. So that's the differential. That's kind of explaining the differentials for that question that was asked, if that helps.
Thanks very much, Mr. Amos. Trustee Young and then Trustee Austin.
I think having read that question, there's probably a kind of an underlying piece to this that that these other professionals are not people who support students. And I just wonder if somebody can break down the clinical counselor, of course, pretty straightforward. What other professionals are in that category that we might not think of? And I'm wondering, for example, physiotherapists, that kind of folks. I don't know whether they fit in there or not.
So generally, as I say, it's the superintendent, associate superintendent, director of operations, operations managers. We've got homestay workers that fall within the ISP program. We've got at the board office, we've got an assistant secretary treasurer. We've got health and wellness coordinators. That's the domain that is effectively embedded in this. And again, without getting into the weeds of contributions and that kind of thing, but generally speaking, they're the administrative staff that go into the school district's planning.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. Ms. Austin.
Thanks for that explanation, Ron. So I'm just trying to be very clear because the question, specifically asked that difference represents an increase of about 17.38%, which, when you look at it, is alarming. Now, so I'm trying to get clarification here. What you're saying, so that's a difference of 316,000, about 317,000, let's say. But from what I understand, you're saying is in 2024, one of the other professional salaries was listed under a different column, was the capital project, right? So that,
Right.
I'm not sure what that amount would have been, but it would have been what amount would that have been off the top of your head?
So let's just use 100,000 as our example.
Okay, so that would
right?
come off the 219 because that normally would be in there, but we put it in the other one because of a project. So, and then there's the hiring of the clinical counselor position. So there's, Without those
So
figures, what would you
so
say
the delta that's left, if you want, the delta that's left is the escalation in the wage increase. And so I think we reported to the board when we had to submit the exempt compensation was to the tune of $80,000 increase. That coincided with the provincial wage increases that were negotiated at the table. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I could report this out in a different manner, but that's effectively what we're doing is 2024 was reduced by 100,000. This year is increase of about 120, and then an additional 80,000 in wage increases, which gives you about that $300,000 delta.
Okay, so really what you're looking at is perhaps not the 17.38% increase. It would be, the increase would be $80,000 of
Of the 1.9 effectively. Yeah.
317,000, whatever 80% or $80,000 of that, whatever percentage that works out to. Is that right?
Yep.
And that's about about 4%-ish.
Sounds right.
Yeah, so that's really, so I'm just trying to clarify, is that what it is? Probably the other professional line was an increase of about 4%. Is that right?
Like
Okay.
I'm going
you
on and
added-
off. I'm
Yeah.
clicking my mic when
Yeah.
I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yes, 4% is in line with what the provincial mandate was. That's effectively what was negotiated at the provincial tables for both MATA and CUPE.
Okay.
All exempt staff were increased by that much. So you can't just isolate the two other buckets. You then have to transfer that information over to all of our exempt staff getting that increase as well.
So yeah, no, that's what I'm just trying to get clarification. I really appreciated this question from Ray, because anybody looking at those numbers, it is rather alarming. And without the little nuance of why it is like that, you can understand why people would be questioning and scratching their heads over it. So I appreciate trying to tease it out and just what that means. Thank you.
Trustee Kellogg?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Julie for teasing that out so that there is understanding as to how much the percentage increase was. You helped me. So thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Thanks, Mr. Amos, for delving down into that. And we have the motion to then approve our audited financial statements, moved by myself, seconded by Trustee Young. Call a question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Amos. And now we'll move on to action items, the school codes of conduct. This is an annual piece of our work, our business as our trustees. We've had the package in our hands prior to the meeting. So to jump things off here, I'll move that the Board of Education receive the school codes of conduct for the year 2025-26 school year as previously provided. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kurland. And Superintendent Dr. Jory, would you like to add some comments regarding this year's schools of conduct? We're into year 2 of our new template or our new method of providing parents and families with our codes of conduct, and lots of discussions at schools to create them. So any further commentary?
Yeah, I'll keep the history lesson brief. A few years back, the Board of Education suggested to me that we would like to have our codes of conduct updated across the district and to get them aligned in their design and intention, so to speak. And so we formed a committee a couple of years ago and went to work. And what you see now is alignment in format. There's a matrix at the beginning of it that describes, I think, in more positive and aspirational terms, what we would like to see in our school environment. There's some details in there that are around how we go about that work, the legislation that needs that drives this has to be noted, and essentially some pieces in there are obligatory, but we wanted to make sure that that front section, that first page, was really about who we want to be as a school. And so you'll see that across all the different codes of conduct if you wish to go and look. We have a good system here to review them throughout the spring. Our principals work with their stakeholder groups to come up with different suggestions, and then those suggestions are highlighted and submitted to the board, and then the final copy is are held. We don't approve them here. We've moved that process back so that when everybody comes back to school and we can have our opening staff meetings, that they can check in and make sure that those codes of conduct that they'd worked on the previous year still hold up with their current staff. So that's where we are now, and this is why we're doing it in September. And so we ask the board to officially receive them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jory. Are there any comments, trustees? Trustee Young.
Yeah, I think these codes of conduct are really important, and I think we might be the only district that reviews them every year, but I really support us doing that. And I think, in reviewing them this year, there's a couple of things that I'm just kind of concerned me a bit. First of all, these are codes of conduct for schools, and there's no codes of conduct for our programs, and so I think maybe we need to look at some of our personnel policies overall around what is right and proper behavior in our system as a whole. The other thing is that I'd noted as I go to PAC meetings that PACs, parents sometimes they're given a lot of input and sometimes not very much at all. And I think that's something that I'd really like to encourage parents on PACs to, really look at these documents, because these are the ones that our kids are held to. And they're really important. So there's some other things that we need to tease out, I think, with these, but I do like the new format, and I do like the way that they set up in general. So I hope we can keep doing it and do it with more consultation and make them really fantastic living documents.
I think your key there was that they're living documents with our schools. And I think all your district programs you'd find are all comprised of students that come from schools, students that come from schools. So they'd be encompassed in their behavior should be overall the same. So Mr. Churchshaw. You're on mute.
Sorry, that was an accident. Apologize.
Okay, you'll get your turn soon. Are there any further comments regarding receipt of this year's 2025-2026 school year? We are doing this early, so it's been out for kids when they come back to school. Usually we did a little later in the year, so I think our timing is better. So that's another step forward in our evolution. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Thanks very much, everyone. So over to Dr. Jory and the superintendent's report on our information items. Dr. Jory.
Thank you, Chair Flynn. Hello, everyone. Esquale and bonjour. Happy startup. Here we are again, back into the learning. There's a very good energy out there in schools, and we're excited about the coming year. Again, the schools and sites were in great shape thanks to the operations staff, who continually reset the bar in regard to what we can expect when staff and students show up in September. The new track is fully operational. The new washrooms at our 2 high schools are nearing completion and should be open next week. Community consultation for the future school in Lasqueti has been going well. The new contractor has now been chosen and their team visited the site, I believe, today to start the planning process in earnest. This is an exciting time. Student enrollment is coming into sharper focus as we approach month end. 2 years ago, we thought our enrollment would be down and actually went up a bit. Last year, we thought it would be level and it dipped slightly, including a last minute reduction in funded students with unique needs, which required a stern response to staffing levels and supply budgets, unfortunately. This year, we predicted we would be down and we still are. A few new students have trickled in from other places, but the needle is not moving back to any significant degree. Some funded students with unique needs have either joined us, rejoined us, or been identified recently. However, the punchline is that we are still down enough to remain in funding protection for now. Therefore, there is no new revenue coming into the system. Ms. Wilson will provide some further details in a few moments when it's her turn to share. I had some sunny news in regards to transportation in August. We remain pleased with our later and shorter route times, the swipe cards, and the new MyRide app, all of which are significant upgrades to service and efficiency. We did hit a couple of speed bumps recently in that a significant number of families came forward well after the many reminders and deadlines had passed and routes had been set for the year. And an impactful error was recognized around arrival times, all of which required a routing reset last week. We apologize profusely for any inconveniences that emerged from these mid-month changes and thank everyone for their patience and support. While we did raise the fees for courtesy riders in an effort to reduce the number of unfilled seats and additional routes and stops that exceeded our actual policy, we would like to remind everyone that we are committed to our ongoing efforts to reduce fee impacts on families, transportation, or otherwise. Again, if parents or caregivers feel that a fee of any kind creates a hardship, we invite them to reach out to their school principal to support them with fee relief. Once the routes settle, the next step is to look at field trip practice, starting with the return of an average cost for local travel so that our rural students have access to the same opportunities as those who live and attend school more centrally. 3.5 years ago, if you recall, we embarked on a bit of a facilities review and we held a town hall conversation that led to a number of catchment changes for the 2022-23 school year. These changes were deemed to be quite a success in that a number of rural families in the west end of the school district got shorter travel times. The Ecole Oceanside English track population increased from 71 students to over 140, positively impacting school culture. And Springwood Elementary, which had reached 540 students at the time, went back down to about 475 students and were able to return their coveted multi-purpose room from a temporary classroom back into general use. However, the condo development continues in the Springwood neighborhood, and the school population is up again over 500. So it is time to review our boundaries once more and just make sure that we are utilizing our space in a balanced and appropriate manner across the district in time for the 26-27 school year and years following. We intend to return to this work in the fall of this year, then come back to the board this winter with some possible recommendations for those phase 2 changes that we did not operationalize 3 years ago. Thank you again to everyone out there who supports learning, directly or indirectly, for your great work and for looking after students in the Qualicum School District. You are noticed and appreciated. By Sept, everyone, thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Dr. Jory. Trustees, any questions? Trustee Austin.
Thank you very much for that, Peter. Just reminding you if there may be recommendations coming forward in terms of changes to catchment areas or anything like that. I'm just hoping that we can ensure that it gets to our families as early as possible in the year so they have as much time as possible to respond. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Austin. Seeing no further hands, I'll move to our preliminary enrollment report. Superintendent Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that it is our preliminary report. We're still working on the data. So these numbers that I'm about to share with you are in draft and they're draft only. I think this evening's meeting's been about numbers. It's been actually been called a numbers board meeting for September. Just a little bit of information for those of you that are not familiar with how we are funded for students. We have what's called a head count, which is a student in grade 1 is a student in grade 1 and they're one student. That happens for all of our students that are in anywhere from K to 9. If you're one student, you're equal one student. In the grade 10 through 12 program, our graduation years, we work on what's called full-time equivalency, or FTE as we abbreviate it to. And not all students take full courses. And to be a full-time student in our school, they take 8 courses, and that equals 1 full-time equivalent, which is the same as one student in grade 9 taking their courses. And so we're in that working phase of finding out what is our true FTE, because the ministry funds us on an FTE count, which is a combination of the head counts for K to 9 and then the number of courses that students are taking in the 10 through 12 year. And so that's how we do our calculations. And I really want to acknowledge our office staff, our principals and vice principals that are doing the work this year. Our office staff, we're still getting registrations coming into our door. We're still getting files being requested to go to other schools. So it's lots of ins and outs, and it does make for a very busy time. Also, I want to acknowledge our teachers and our principals and vice principals in looking to make sure that somebody who was expected to attend, they've not attended, and we've not had a request for their file to go. And so we take a look to see who are our what we call our no-shows and how we provide support to them. We had a meeting with our secondary principals last week to look at who are the students that we're concerned about that we've not seen yet, and what kind of outreach do we need to do to get them engaged and enter school. And so what I'm going to share my screen right now is you're going to see the district enrollment as of today, September the 23rd. And it's a total number of students that we have based on their head count, not on their FTE. And I'll explain the FTE totals that we're seeing at the moment after you've seen this sheet. So I'll share my screen and I'll just walk you through this. So as you can see, this is a district enrollment for all of our students, so not including what we call our fee-paying students. Our fee-paying students are our international program. In this sheet here, it includes any student that is also connected to our school that is registered as a homeschooler. And it's the true sense of homeschooler. It's not part of our KEEP program, our online learning program. We have 17 students that are registered in one of our elementary schools that are connected as a homeschooler. We don't get funded on a full-time equivalency for those students. I think we get a nominal fee of just over $200 for them to be connected to our program or to our schools, but we want them connected. So that does include them, and there's 17 of them in our system. Of note, I want you to look at the bottom line here and looking at our cohort. And this is what Secretary Treasurer Amos alluded to in some of the funding conversations that we're having. We had a projection of 238 kindergarten students this year. We're very close. We're at 231 today. But the cohort of kindergarten students compared to our higher grade 11 and 12 students is significant. So we've got a graduation class this year of over 400 students. And our cohorts coming in are in the 200 ranges, 250, 231 being our lowest this year. That's why we're in funding protection. That's why we've got some challenges ahead of us. Of note, we want to celebrate that our Falls Bay School is now a K-12 school, and you can see that we've got some students in our Falls Bay School in our graduating years. It is no longer a K-9 school. The students that are in grade 10, 11, and 12, you'll see there's 7 of them there. They're not bringing in 7 FTEs. They're bringing in about 4 FTEs at the moment with the courses that they're currently registered for. Also want to make note of Springwood, where Superintendent Dory talked about, we've got some concerns about the numbers there. That is a school this year that has gone over what we projected. by just over 20 students. We didn't anticipate that they would be in well over 500. We anticipated they'd be around the 500 mark, and they're coming in at 524, which is 22 students over what we had projected for that particular site. That's concerning for us, and that's why we talked about the boundary. Where do we need to look at our boundaries? One, also pay attention to our École Oceanside. This year, you heard us talk about the number of French immersion students that we've got registered in the kindergarten class. We have just over one class. We have about 24 students registered in the kindergarten French immersion class, which is different than prior years where we've had about 40. But when you look at the size of the cohort, which is 231 compared to previous years, we've had the numbers of kindergarten students that want to register. So it makes sense that we have a less enrolling in the immersion programs because we have less kindergarten children overall. Our KEEP program has been declining over the years. We don't have as many students taking KEEP. We did do some staffing adjustments this year to reflect that. K to 9, it is one-time equivalent. One student equals one FTE, whereas the 10 through 12, those are the students that are currently registered that are taking KEEP, but they often take one course at a time. They don't take all 8 courses at a time. They take one course at a time. In these numbers that you see here, it doesn't reflect necessarily any students that we might have that are cross-enrolled, and I know that there's some work that we need to do in here still. So what I put on the side for you here, and I'll scroll this over, is that when we do the math on all of the courses that the students, that the headcount we see here are taking, we're currently sitting at 4,242.6 full-time equivalency, and that's what we will get funded on if we were to submit this today. Our projected funded amount for the FTE was 4,257 FTE. So that's based on the declining enrollment that we've talked with the board about and what we've did the staffing adjustments for and the budget that we worked really hard on this past year. But we're still under, we still need to find another 14 FTEs. And I know that our schools are still doing some work. We have some of our grade 11s and 12s that still don't have a full schedule, a full timetable for the full year, so we're working on that. And I know that there's some growth there that we need to do into our KEEP program. So that's my sharing of, I'm going to say it again, our draft as we speak today, which I know will have some changes. I also want to speak a little bit about our level 1, 2, and 3 supplemental funding. We have seen some changes in there. We seem to have lost some in our level 3. And sometimes that's because their categories change, and we seem to have had an increase in our level 2. And sometimes students are changed from the category that they're in because of some medical information or additional information, and they're screened into a different category. Other times it's because they're de-designated, because the strategies that have been shared and worked, they get de-designated, which is good because they're working and it's going very well for our students and families. We have had some students move back, as Superintendent Jory spoke of, and we've had some new students come into our system. Those numbers are still there. I feel confident about where we're at, but it still is, we still have till the end of the week to make sure we've got all of our screening notes in there, and we do see some adjustments in level 1, 2, and 3 funding. And that's it.
So in summary, the magic date is September 30th. And that is when things can look real, or at least as it is reported to the ministry.
Yeah, and I think for us this year, because we have our Truth and Reconciliation on the 29th, and because of the now recognition of the Truth and Reconciliation Day for September 30th, no, September 30th is no longer the day. We've actually been pushed back earlier.
Yeah. But ostensibly what arrives on October 1st won't necessarily help us. Any comments, questions, trustees? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on then to our tag team of educational programs updates. Associate Superintendent Wilson and Director of Instruction, Mr. Terpstra. Who's going first tonight?
sure Miss Wilson would love a little bit of a break before she continues. And so my report was pretty fulsome at the Ed Committee, and people can see that. I just wanted to remind people and parents that as we get through our first month of school, all of our classes are going through a class review process. We'll also be starting fall assessments, which teachers do on a regular basis, especially at the beginning of the year to see getting to know their learners. But we also have formally the provincial FSAs coming up in October and a few district assessments, all of which drive our teacher learning, which is starting up in full action in October as well. So looking forward to all of that coming up next, and to a great October. Thank you.
And I think our kindergarten snapshot's underway as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, just a few things myself. I want to acknowledge our Rotary Club in town here who have funded and supported some continuation of an outreach program that we started last year through an Island Health grant. Rotary have heard our plea, and we're going to be able to continue that outreach program through our child and youth care workers. So I want to acknowledge them. Also want to acknowledge that last year we applied through Virtual Foundry, and we were given training and some funding to be able to run the Preventure program. And we ran it in all of our secondary schools last year, where our grade 8s did the screener to be able to look at what tendencies they had. And then some of our students participated in groups based on those tendencies, whether you were a high risk taker, somebody that was more reserved. And it's a drug prevention program, and it's got some amazing stats around how it supports youth making more positive decisions for themselves. So we're moving into our second year for that, and it will again be our grade 8s that go through that, do the screening in the fall, and then they have the groups that happen right after the new year. Want to acknowledge the work that Sheila's done around our school meals. We do need to meet with our principals and vice principals again and look at the distribution of the funds that were shared with us a week and a half ago, which is great. It's additional monies that comes in to provide the food programs in our schools. And so I'm sure that our staff are going to be excited to know that they get some additional funds to be able to work with that. And have chatted with DPAC around looking at how they can support a working group. And so really looking forward to some of their input and what we're hearing from our parents. The Hands and Hearts program, which is the community program that is ran in our community for, well over 20 years now, that started as a small, who can I provide some Christmas winter hampers to during that winter break for about 6 to 10 families in our community, is now providing through fundraising from a community partner over the last several years, anywhere from 60 to 70 hampers each month. And it happens through an army of volunteers, as well as some of our staff that help identify and support families. And so our first hampers went out last Wednesday, and we had 79 families reach out to their schools in one way or another to ask if they could be on that program. And we've been able to provide that support for the 79 families that put their hands out and said, can you please provide me with some support? Schools are in full session. Kiddos are happy and they're connecting with their new friends in new classrooms with new teachers. I was in one school today and they were talking about, today we've got the Terry Fox run, we've got an assembly for this and we've got an assembly for that. And we're making sure that we do acknowledge Truth and Reconciliation Day, which happens next Tuesday, and knowing that we've got a day for district learning on the Monday. One school was sharing with me this morning that they created a bulletin board and each child is colored in a shell, which are shells that are unique and native to the West Coast, to our community, and they've colored them in terms of their uniqueness. And so that's something that they're going to be sharing at the Ed Committee, I think, Trustee Young. We're working, as you mentioned, with the snapshot. We're also working on a literacy learning series with a group of individuals that are working with our teacher who we were able to maintain and support partially through the professional learning grant to promote literacy and helping support teacher practice within our schools, within our classrooms around literacy. So we're looking forward to that. And it's only, 3 weeks in, and it feels really busy, but very fulsome out there. So thank you.
Any questions of our Associate Superintendent Wilson? Ms. Kellogg, Tessie Kellogg.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if there are any groups that are developed for the Feeding Futures money, I think it would be ideal if one of us trustees was able to be part of that program. Yeah.
Yeah, good suggestion, Trustee Kellogg. Thank you. Seeing no further hands, thank you very much, one and all, on the information updates. Lots of stuff happening, and yeah, it's only week 3. Okay, we'll turn now to the Education Committee of the Whole. And Trustee Young, if you want to lead off and then speak to your report, then lead into Dr. Jory's presentation of the framework for enhancing student learning.
Okay, yeah. So Ed Committee has some aspirations, and I think I want to share them with the folks who are here. A while ago, we had 2 separate committees, one working on social justice, one working on environmental concerns, sustainability. And when we started the committees of the whole, the goal with the Ed Committee was to focus somewhat on those 2 areas. So to me, social justice is all of that inclusion, equity, diversity piece, and the environment is all about sustainable practice. So we're looking for folks who, particularly students or teachers, who have something to share around that. And we're looking for the Education Committee to become a vibrant place where we can explore in depth some of these topics. In the last Education Committee meeting, we tried doing the committee meeting at lunchtime, and it didn't work. And so Mr. Terpstra, who is my associate in this, has gone out to the high schools, and he is going to recommend, and I'm going to follow up and recommend, that we change the time of the committee meeting to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Used to be 2:30, 2 o'clock works as well. So this is prior notice, and I don't know quite what we're going to do around process, Board Chair Flynn, but that's our prior notice, and that's when we'll have the meeting the next time. In addition to that, I just wanted to point out that our meetings are now being recorded, and I believe they're being posted. Now, there's a bit of an issue with Ed Committee in that we often have students, and we welcome students, we want students to come, and at the same time, because of privacy, we might not be able to publish our presentations from students. I think that's about all. I'm going to look over to Mr. Terpstra, though, to see if he wants to say anything. And then to Mr. Jory, Dr. Jory. Thank you very much, Dr. Jory. You really did a deep dive into the FESL at the Ed Committee meeting. So thank you for that. Mr. Terpstra, do you have anything to add?
No, I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the opportunity to work alongside with you, Trustee Young, and we look forward to the education committees going on in the future. And we have also just opened up the door for schools to present when timely. So we invite them, and sometimes we'll have to nudge some groups that we know of, but I think it's going to work well.
So the next meeting will be the 2nd Tuesday in October at 2 o'clock.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And over to Dr. Jory for your FESL summary.
Thank you, Trustee Young, and thank you, Trustee Young, for mentioning the presentation. For anyone who is interested in getting that tour of the festival report, you can find it on YouTube. You may have to use our old moniker in your search, SD69 Education Committee, and it should pop right up. I actually checked to see if it would today, and I actually watched part of it again just to make sure that I was hitting the things that I thought I did. So that was about 16 or 17 minutes, and it kind of walks through the 5 different categories. And if you are at all curious as an educator or a parent or student or otherwise, I would encourage you to do that and take a look. The briefing notes on page 78. It speaks to the legislation that is driving this whole festival program. And I will remind everybody that this is an attempt to have all school districts essentially focus on achievement, have boards of education be more aware of how their students are doing, and to encourage this type of growth. To have us use a format for sharing that, which is digestible and aligned, so that we're all kind of doing the same thing, and ultimately to raise results in the province. If you go and look at this document, you can see that those charts are a little different than they used to look. This is a new template. This is the short version, which is only 40 pages. Every third year, we will do the full report, which will include some strategic planning components. And I think one of the things you'll notice right away is certain portions of our data are masked, those priority populations. There's very little actual information in the charts there because the student groups have 9 or less, or you can subtract one from the other and get 9 or less. And so they need to remain discrete to protect the privacy of those individuals. If you want to know more about how those priority populations are doing, the anecdotal comments inside the document will tell the story. I've spent a lot of time gathering that information and summarizing in those brief notes to make sure that we were telling that story as best we could. A couple of quirky things about this. I've moved the reporting from, this is for the board, ostensibly around transitions from the numeracy section, which I don't understand why it was put in there in the template, over to the graduation section, because in the way that we do business, we think that improvements to transition are ostensibly come from all the work that we do to support our kids on their way to graduation. That seems logical, I hope. In closing, staff's very pleased with the results in this report. We've maintained or are now seeing achievement outcomes that are at or above provincial averages all across our categories of literacy, numeracy, transition, and graduation, despite residing in a community which has lower than typical household education rates and income levels. And there's a huge correlation between those items. So for us to achieve above that, I think, is a great step to promoting equity across the school district. The one exception, of course, is grade 10 numeracy, but the results that have just come out that aren't represented in this document are extremely strong. There's a huge jump there, and we're very encouraged about all the work that's been going on around the school district in support of numeracy. And we are a little bit here and there on perceptions of how students feel about school, and we are below in our transition rates of post-secondary, so those things should be noted. Once approved, this final version will be placed on our district website, shared with Ministry of Education and Childcare, and this needs to be done before the end of September. So we are asking that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum approve the framework for enhancing student learning report as presented.
I was just going to move that motion, Dr. Jory. And just as a note to what Dr. Jory is saying, the narrative that was prepared by the school district, not the stuff in the front, but the actual narrative is really, really good, I thought. So thank you for that. So yes, I have moved that the Board of Education School District 69 Qualicum approve the framework for enhancing student learning report as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Second by Trustee Kellogg. Are there any other questions? We've seen this a number of times over the past couple of months in draft and now the final. And this is a requirement of, it's a ministerial requirement for us to submit this report. So that is putting us here today with this motion. Thank you, Dr. Jory, for all your work and all your work with our principals and vice principals in collating, graphing, and doing all of those things that are embedded in the report. Are there any questions, trustees? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried. So off to the ministry it shall go with a bow on it. Thank you, Dr. Jory. Finance and Operations Committee of the Whole. Trustee Kellogg is our facilitator. The report is contained in your agendas, page 117 to 121. And over to you, Trustee Kellogg.
Thank you very much, Trustee Flynn. Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum support the 2026-2027 minor capital submission as presented.
Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Young. Are there any additions to the minor capital plan as presented that you wish to add to this, Mr. Amos? All is written
Yeah,
and
well,
has
really
been discussed.
just to note that it's being done in two. So the minor capital includes the buses, as noted on that page 21. It includes buses, it includes a school enhancement program, it includes capital neutral, capital program, playground equipment, and bus replacement. And then as a separate entity, which is the second motion, is the school food infrastructure program. It's a separate submission, it's a separate date. One is September 30th, the other one is October 1st. Yeah, that's the context of what's before you.
So one would ask why is it different dates, but I won't go there.
Honestly, I thought about that, and I suspect it's because the FIP program is new and likely yet to be determined if it's a permanent program. They want to keep it independent of the other programs.
A different computer cell on the ledger. Are there any questions, trustees? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And over to you for your second motion this evening, Trustee Kellogg.
I don't have a second motion on my minutes.
Yep. Well, in the agenda that the Board of Education School District support the 2026-2027 minor capital plan.
Okay.
School food infrastructure program submission is presented as
Yes.
Mr. Amos spoke to. They split them out. So
okay.
Lost
so
in translation.
Recommendation that the Board of Education of School District 69 support the 2026-2027 minor capital submission as presented.
That's just related to the school food infrastructure program.
Right.
Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kurland. Or Trustee Young, you have a question.
The food programs are getting a little complex for my mind to understand. So this is the provincial program that has an end date sometime this year. This is not the federal program. Is that correct? Because we're getting from both places.
This is the capital component of the provincial program.
Right.
Okay. So this is originally it was linked to the Feeding Future Fund that was provided from the province, and the new funds that you're referring to, the new federal funds, which is the National Food Program, which started about April, May of this year, doesn't have any capital component. It's only the provincial component.
Okay.
That the ministry has put aside some dollars so that schools, as we have, can update their kitchens, can update their utensils, their supplies to provide a food program in those school sites.
I didn't realize that the national program was restricted to food only. I guess food
Food and staff.
Staff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, yeah.
It was pretty new as the school year ended, and I don't think we had a lot of details as to what it was going to look like and on a per capita basis and enrollment basis and all those things. So yeah.
And it's too bad it doesn't support infrastructure.
Well, I think we've done well on the other side of the ledger with infrastructure from the provincial program. Are there any other questions, trustees? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. There is no policy committee of the whole report this September. We have a couple of policies, big policies that are still in progress of being developed, and we have some changes in WorkSafe BC, which deals with harassment and things like that, which are still to come, which we thought would be here, but they've been postponed due to further complications that WorkSafe BC is seeing. And we, with my trustee policy advisor at my side, Dr. Jory, we're thinking of for our last two sections of maybe considering a different matrix to present policies with. So more to come in our October meeting. There are no reports from representatives or outside organizations. Within your package, trustees, you would find the external and district committee representatives, and for trust liaisons to schools. I'm sorry, I've got something in my eye. This is page 122, 123 in your package. And I heard from trustees that wish to move, and some have moved, and I heard from trustees that wanted to stay and things like that. So I hope this lands with everybody as being what their expectations were of being involved with other groups and other aspects of our work. And so you will find that in your package. Are there any questions, trustees? Okay, seeing none, just to report out, the board met with the Minister of Education with our senior staff yesterday. We met with Advisor Joel Block and Megan McCrae, along with the Minister, Lisa Bear. We had the opportunity to speak with the Minister on funding. Has come up a number of times tonight or in different places. The funding from the point of view of public schools versus private schools, diverse learners, and adequate supports. And I think we covered off as much as we could on the funding envelope piece, messaging that yes, it was a concern to the district and ongoing. Benefits escalations also appeared under that sort of funding banner, which is, of course, something that it tends to not be funded through the ministry increases due to contract negotiation and things like that. We wanted to touch on things that were positive, though, as well, and spoke and highlighted for her our work with Feeding Futures and our school meals programs and our new childcare builds, which are important to our community. And then, of course, the Fall Space School is very exciting for those of us here on the Big Island versus the isolated Lasqueti School at False Bay. Her accolades to us, or was responsive to us to say she was pleased that we received and had approved terms of references for our Indigenous Education Committee. Some districts are not and have not been as successful, and it's complicated with a number of First Nations involved. So she was affirming our ability to have a terms of reference. And of course, that we also were very much sort of ahead of the game with AEDs in schools and the future use or training for our grade 10s on naloxone. All in all, it was part of her work from her mandate letter being issued upon election to meet with all school districts. So I would say that she was open to hear our comments and was a a time with her, which it doesn't often happen with the ministers, that you actually get your own time with the minister. So any other trustees want to chime in with how it went or what they thought or and felt that they were heard? Trustee Kellogg.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when we had the discussion on diverse learners and some questioning about some of the promises about extra support staff or staff just in general, because supports in the school are a variety of different professional providers. And she said that all of that is still on the table. So whatever that means, to me, I know that the finances are not there, but I'm glad that they're still getting the message that schools and students need additional support.
And I think
I loved the meeting. I thought it was a great meeting. I thought we addressed some things that were important to us as a board, and yeah, it was lovely meeting with her.
And I think she tried to extend our thinking beyond education assistance and supports in schools with the fact that certification and remote learning for educators, teachers, be it education assistants or otherwise, be that much more flexible and barrier free, so that we can have more folks involved in the process, and teacher education being also part of that.
Yeah.
Trustee Kurland, your comments.
Yes, I enjoyed the meeting that we had with the minister. And I want to point out to people that the the two biggest ministries that we have are the Ministry of Health and Education. And putting money into health is like putting money into your house right now. And education, except for, certain needs right now, is really an investment in the future.
Yeah.
That it's completely an investment in the future. You're not going to see the results of what you're doing for many years. And so we have to, take the road that we're doing this correctly now, and we're going to invest it, and we're going to see the results in the future. So it's, it's just that has that aspect about education that we're not sure exactly what's going to happen right now, because we're looking at what's going to happen 12, 20, 30 years from now. So it was enjoyable meeting the minister.
Thanks, Trustee Kurland. No other comments for trustees, so I'll move on to our new and unfinished business. So this is new business, and this will be in the form of two notices of motions this evening for trustees to take away and to come back and consider for debate and discussion at our October meeting. But this is in regards to bringing out of in camera. The board feels that we need to present this now for transparency and the like to the public and our community on the future considerations for Craig Street Commons, otherwise known as the Parksville Elementary School. We have spent some time not only at Fins and Ops, but certainly at the board table, considering options for the going forward of Craig Street Commons. We have been discussing with municipal partners and service providers over an extended period of time, of which nothing to this point has resolved itself in any successful opportunities for us to consider. So I would present this evening two notices of motions to be considered at our board meeting in October. That the Board of Education, School District 69 Qualicum, confirm that Lot 1 and 2 Plan VIP 17240, District Lot 13, the Newsland District known as the former Parksville Elementary School property, will not be required for future educational purposes by the Board of Education. This motion is specifically a requirement by us to then proceed to further discussions and a notification to the Ministry of Education. The second motion reads that the Board of Education of Schools 69 seek approval from the Ministry of Education to proceed with the disposition of Lot 1 and 2, Plan VIP 17240, District Lot 13, the Newsland District, known as the former elementary school property. So these two motions will come forward at our October meeting for consideration and debate. And I leave it with our trustees and our community to think this through, think about it, and come back in October for a fulsome and likely spirited discussion about our Craig Street Commons properties. I will now move then to public question period. Are there any questions? And someone's going to have to help me with the screens, but please raise your hands, folks, if you have questions. Then they flash up for me. Seeing no questions, could I ask for a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. And thank you one and all for joining us tonight. We're on our way for yet another school year. I just note though at the end, September 30th, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. This is a federal holiday, so we all need to wear our orange shirts, I hope. And then also, as brought to our attention by our MATA president, World Teacher Day, October the 5th, which everyone can take a moment to reflect on. Great teachers in their lives, I'm sure, and there's always one or two that pop up in my mind. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and have a pleasant evening. Heishka.